Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being with us today. My name is Veronica Alvarez, and I'm the Regional 13 Coordinator for Partner Resource Network. Sorry for my voice. And again, we have Allison Schaberg from Consolidated Planning Group and Michelle Morris, also for Consolidated Planning Group, talking to us. Thank you guys for being with us today. Before we start our presentation, we are going to talk a little bit about Partners Resource Network and what we do. So I'm going to share my screen really quick, guys. Talking about us. So Partners Research Network is a parent training and information centers for Texas. We are funded by the Department of Education, Office of Special Education to provide free resources and training for parents of children with disabilities and youth with disabilities that we call them self-advocates. Our mission is to empower and support Texas families and individuals impacted with disabilities with special healthcare needs. Who we serve, parents of children with disabilities and youth with disabilities from the ages of 0 to 26. Partner Resource Network was first funded in 1986, and now we have 4 projects serving parents. So we have a regional coordinator near you. So I'm in the Region 13 area, that is Austin. And we have, so I'm in the part of the team project. We have another 2 coordinators serving parents in that area. We have a coordinator in Region 20, that is San Antonio, and another 2 coordinators serving Region 1, that is the Rio Grande Valley area, that's Region 1. But if you are out of that areas, please just send us an email if you don't know your regional coordinator, and we can put you in contact with one of us. Our services are free, and we offer parent workshops, youth workshops, webinars, information and referrals, one-on-one technical assistance, support in the R meetings and IEP meetings. We do once a year a symposium, and we offer also parent leadership training and youth leadership training. So for today, your microphone and video camera is off. So if you have a question at any time, please type it in the chat box or in the Q&A. And Allison and Michelle, we are going to answer those questions for us. And also, we are recording this presentation. We are going to post it, this presentation in our Facebook page, a team Facebook page. And also, Allison with Consolidated Planning Group, they have a YouTube channel, and they also put the recordings in that link on YouTube. She's going to talk about that in a moment. So at the end of the presentation, you are going to receive a link to a survey or evaluation. Please take a few minutes to fill that evaluation. That will help us a lot, and with your feedback, and we can report to our grant and continue to give you guys free resources. We do not provide CEUs. We only do certificate of attendance. If you need one, please type it in the chat box or email me, and I can do one for you guys. So again, this is my contact information. My name is Veronica Alvarez, and I work for Partner Resource Network. And that's my contact information, my email, my phone number, and our main webpage. Please visit www.prntexas.org. I also put my information in the chat if you need it later on. All right, guys, I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Veronica.
Yes, we definitely love the information that you guys provide and the help that you guys provide to the community. What you guys are doing makes a big difference. So thank you for that. And as always, we are excited to be partnered with you again. I know we've done a lot of webinars with Partners Resource Network all across the state, not just in your in your region. So we're grateful for the opportunity. So I'm excited to have my business colleague here, Michelle Morris. Today we're going to tag team today's presentation. Michelle does quite a few presentations for us as well. And as Veronica mentioned, we do have a YouTube channel. So basically our webinars live on that YouTube channel after they happen. So if you missed one at lunch one day, you got pulled into a meeting and you couldn't get away, you can go back and listen to it. There's over 100 webinars on our YouTube channel, all related to special needs topics and topics that may have crossed your mind in the past, or something that you might be wondering about or thinking about, got questions on. So we definitely want you to check it out. And it's all free. You don't have to pay for anything like that. You can subscribe to and listen to as much as you want. So Allison Schaberg here, Consolidated Planning Group. Michelle, again, she's a colleague on our team. She actually works here at Consolidated Planning Group as well. We work on a collaborative team, and we're excited about the services that we're able to provide to families by working on a collaborative team. So as Veronica has mentioned in the past, I am a parent. I am a parent to 4 with 2 kids that have special needs, and I eat, sleep, and breathe this, both personally and professionally. And I too have kind of gone through the challenges of transitioning and what changes when we cross over, when our children become adults, you know. So today we're gonna be talking about planning for special needs and kind of some of the things that you need to have on your radar. Now, what I will say is, once we get started with this, most of the topics that we're going to be talking about today can and should have an entire webinar dedicated to it. So if you feel like we're scratching the surface, or we're moving a little fast, or things like that, today is kind of more of a, if you're making a list, what are the things that I should have on my radar? What are some of the things that I should be thinking about? This really can be overwhelming. It's overwhelming to a lot of people because there's so many things, Michelle. I mean, how many times do we hear a week, I really don't know what I don't know, and I don't know where to start? It's
Exactly. Kind of, yeah, we hear that all the time. Nobody knows where to start or what they're supposed to even ask about. When we say, what questions do you have for us? So many people just say, I don't know. So
I don't know what to ask.
We definitely understand that it's overwhelming and there's a ton to think about, and that's why we're here to help.
For sure, for sure. So let's just talk about getting started. So today, as you're making notes, well, number one, you don't have to make too many notes because you're going to get the slides, and you're going to get an email with today's slides afterwards. So you don't have to worry about that. But just don't be thinking of like drinking from the fire hose and being overwhelmed. This is just kind of just an overall generalized list. And then people like us and our team, we help you organize that list. We help you organize those steps. Where do you need to start? What steps do you need to take first? And then where do you need to go from there? So first things first, your situation is really specialized. So when it comes to a specialized situation, you know, in healthcare or medical decisions, if we have a specialized condition, we go see a specialist, right? We don't go to the primary care physician for our cardiac issues, or we don't go to a primary care physician if we have cancer or things like that. We go see a specialist. So when it comes to planning for special needs, so I think what we would say is your situation is what, Michelle?
Very specialized.
For sure, for sure. And so we want you to work with a special needs planner to help you formulate your plan. And so really knowing the difference between what a special needs planner is and what a special needs attorney is, what each of their roles are, and how those roles play into to what you need. Because the bottom line is a lot of people think they just need a special needs attorney or they just need a special needs planner. And the bottom line is you need both. So I always summarize this very quickly by saying we're the money and they're the paper. They're the legal documents. They're the documents that you will need in the future. We'll talk about those today. But we're the funding for those. We're the money in the right bucket. And so we work very closely with those special needs attorneys to make sure that everything is set up properly. So talking about this specialization is the same thing for attorneys. When you're working with an attorney, all attorneys are not created equally. All financial advisors are not created equally. Most financial advisors are not nuanced in special needs. They don't have any background in special needs. And there is a subset of attorneys that have a background in special needs. Not all attorneys have backgrounds in special needs. So you want to be very, very careful with the type of folks that you're working with because the laws are the way that they are, and there's so many rules, and I call it hoops and loops that you have to jump through to make sure that you preserve your eligibility for benefits in the future. That those rules are the things that really need to be followed to preserve that eligibility. So Michelle, can you talk to us about some of the planning documents, if they're gathering planning documents, what those documents look like?
Right. When you're working with a financial planner, I mean, we want to see it all. And we know that it might be messy, it might be ugly, you might be just starting out, but we're here to grow with you. We want to see any of the planning you've already done and the questions that you have coming to us. It's kind of like, I think a lot of people think of their financial life as kind of a set it and forget it. You can just put it in there, and kind of like that drawer in your kitchen that has everything in it that, 14,000 rubber bands and paper clips and the scissors and the tape. Some of the stuff in there might be broken. It might not work anymore. Maybe you have too much of one thing and not enough of another, or maybe you need a new thing, whatever, to add to your financial portfolio or junk drawer. But when we're talking about your planning documents, we're talking about all those statements that are just kind of out there, your 401ks, IRAs, pension plans, income and expenses, and just all of that stuff, what you have in place in terms of life insurance, long-term care, disability, your investments, all of that stuff.
And I always add here the Social Security statements too.
Yes,
Social Security statements are really, really important to our planning documents. But don't worry, you don't have to make a list of that. We'll send you a list when it comes to those planning documents. But any legal documents that you already have in place, basically anything statements, anything that could provide a benefit in the future from an insurance perspective, anything that has any amount of value, and it could be from a former employer. It could be anything. So those are the things that you're gathering up. And the reason for that really is because our kids, we provide for them, but we also are in charge of providing for ourselves in our own retirement that could be 25 to 35 years. So careful planning comes into play. So because if we have a child that's going to need care for the rest of their life or some longer time frame than what we typically see with kids graduating college and things like that, then we've got to plan accordingly because it's almost like another retirement bucket. So that's why we ask for that. One of the things that we talk about is developing a letter of intent. And of course, there's a webinar on that on our YouTube channel. But we like to refer to a letter of intent as basically a love letter to your family. And this is mom, dad, you eat, sleep, and breathe your loved one. You have forgot more than anybody will ever know about their care needs, about their likes and dislikes, and everything to do about them. But what if you can't talk? What if you are incapacitated? What if you aren't here on this earth anymore? And this family love letter, this letter of intent basically is going to tell your loved ones everything that they need to know about your child, what their diagnoses are, what the history is, what the medications are, religious preferences, names, address, phone numbers of doctors, medications. It just goes on and on and on. Schools they've attended, things like that. We actually have a template for this. It's 20 pages long. We do recommend if you're doing a letter of intent that you should do it on a Word document as opposed to like a notebook or something, because I don't know about your house, but things change rapidly around mine. So we do recommend that you update this letter of intent. And you know what? Share this with your spouse. So if you're a caregiver, if you're a primary caregiver, sometimes we know for sure that sometimes the spouses don't know all of this information because mom handles it or dad handles it. Like we have like segmented departments that, you know, we handle in our household and things like that. And you're really good at your department and they're really good at theirs. But sometimes when it comes to stuff like this, it's really important that we share that with the other family member and also a future caregiver. So if you have a future caregiver, a future trustee, a future guardian, or other things like that named, they need to know where this document is. Maybe you don't want to give it to them now because you don't want them to look at it now, but at least they need to know that it exists and where to find it. You know, whether your attorney has a copy of it, whether I don't know where you keep it, but you just need to let somebody know about it. Think about your vision. We want you to think about your vision of how you hope things will look for you and your spouse, as well as your special needs child. And I don't want to sound rude at all. And if you guys have heard me, I say this a lot. I said you and your spouse first if you're married, you if you're not. I want you to think about you first because we're always putting our kids first, always. And we always put ourselves last. And when we have a child that may have care needs for the rest of our life, guess what, people? That is a long time. We don't have that luxury of our kids are going to get out of the house and we're going to sail off into the sunset and have all these vacations and retirement and all of those things, because you got to line up childcare or services or things like that. So there has to be a delicate balance. I'm crystal clear that it isn't easy. It isn't easy, but what I'm also crystal clear on is when we don't take into consideration our own needs and wants and our own vision and have some semblance of balance in retirement, and some semblance of I've worked my whole life and I'm going to do some of the things that I've worked hard, to be able to do, people's health decline. And that's going to limit your years and your ability to be a caregiver in the future for your loved one. So I just definitely want that to be on the top of your list as you're thinking. Do we have a question?
No, just somebody was asking if this presentation is going to be recorded or shared. And again, yes, it will be on our YouTube channel, and it will also, the slides will be sent to you afterwards.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for asking that. So this next slide here that we're going to talk about. This is where probably we get the most questions, the most confusion. We have a lot of people that attend our webinars on a pretty regular basis, and if they do, they know that we talk about this a lot. And the reason we talk about this a lot is because it is probably one of the most confusing topics. I think I jumped slides here. One of the most confusing topics out there. People are very, very confused when they start talking about SSI and Medicaid, Social Security, Disability, and Medicare, and the way we throw these terms around. And I've been told once that I talk fast, maybe only once. Anyway.
Just once?
I know, right? What can I say? So one of the things that when we start talking about planning for special needs, we're talking about maintaining eligibility for your kids for state and federally funded programs. A lot of the times when we're talking about this, if you have a child that is under age 18, they've basically, for most of their life in the state of Texas, they have basically not qualified for much, right? Maybe they've never qualified for SSI or Medicaid. Maybe they're getting MDCP. Maybe they're getting a buy-in or some kind of other Medicaid and things like that. But for the most part, a lot of families, their children don't qualify for SSI and Medicaid because as the child is a minor, it's based off of the parent's assets. So when we start talking about SSI and Medicaid, SSI is a supplemental security income. Supplemental security income, SSI. Along with SSI comes Medicaid. So SSI is a means-based program. You have to be disabled, but you also have to be indigent, basically. So disabled and indigent. And so in the eyes of Social Security, for simplicity perspective, basically you have to have less than $2,000 to your name for your child to qualify for SSI and Medicaid. There's some different numbers. If you're married, like 3,000, you can have one house, one car. But the reason most people are not getting SSI and Medicaid is because they have assets more than $2,000 in their name. And this is assets in all sources. Everything's counted unless it's in an ABLE account or a special needs trust. And so any accounts, including retirement accounts, annuities, any kind of other protected asset that you've basically heard before that they're protected, it's not the case when it comes to SSI and what they're looking at. You can have one house and one car. Now, Michelle, can you have one house and land in Tarrant County? So the answer is no. So one house and one car. So another property would be another value. So sometimes you could have more than one car. And sometimes the more than one car would be allowed if the car is super, super old, or if you owe $1 million on the car,
or if it's in pieces in your driveway.
Correct. Or if you plan to sell that car and use that for final expenses for your loved one, that might be a way around having another car. So SSI and Medicaid. So what happens with SSI and Medicaid is when they turn 18, it's based off of their assets, not yours. So, again, you've had this child. That child is clearly disabled. They haven't qualified for SSI and Medicaid all these years. Who even knew you should apply for it again when they turn 18? Well, the answer is you should. The answer is you should make sure that they don't have more than $2,000 in their name specifically. Okay. And basically, with their disabilities, there's something called the Social Security Blue Book. And we're not talking about that today, but you could write that down because it's not in this presentation. The Social Security Blue Book is the impairment guide that the Social Security Administration uses to determine what a person has to prove to be eligible for disability and be considered disabled in the eyes of the Social Security Administration. So you can look up your loved one and all of their conditions that they have and see what it is that you're going to have to prove for their eligibility for SSI and Medicaid. So the Blue Book is a good thing to look up. And again, look up all of their conditions. If they have autism, but they also have ADHD and they also have mental health disorders, we've seen families with Down syndrome, and we've seen comorbid conditions with heart conditions in that regard. So basically look up all of the things that you guys deal with. Every specialist you see, look up that category, right? Is what you need to do. So Michelle, what are some of the accounts? So we talked about the $2,000. And that they can't have more than $2,000 in their child's name or in their name if they're applying when the child is a minor. What are some two places that they can have money above and beyond the $2,000 that will not be counted against them for SSI and Medicaid purposes?
I feel like I'm on a quiz show. I love this. But you can have money in a special needs trust or in an ABLE account or both. You don't have to just pick one, but you do have to be aware of the restrictions on each different kind of account, what they can pay for, how much can be put in there, who can contribute. For example, the ABLE account, you can only put in $16,000 a year, up to $100,000 if you want to keep that SSI eligibility. If you go over that $100,000 total in an ABLE account, then you're going to mess up that eligibility again.
I love that you said that, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. We're going to talk about what you can and can't put into some of these accounts. But every week somebody says, well, I read that you can have $500,000 in an ABLE account. And the truth is,
you can.
You can, but you will not get SSI and Medicaid because $100,000 is that magic number. So we'll talk more about that. That's a great point. So from a tax perspective and the tax favorability of ABLE accounts, you can have up to $500,000, but as soon as you have over $100,000 in there, then they lose their eligibility. So special needs trust and ABLE accounts are two places where you can have money above and beyond what you can have as far as the asset count. And the cool thing about a special needs trust, you can have multiple special needs trusts. So we see sometimes where there's a divorce situation, and neither one wants the other ex-spouse to control the trust and things like that. So you can have more than one special needs trust. So mom can set up a special needs trust for her beloved son. Dad can set up a special needs trust for his beloved son. And neither of the ex-spouses will have any control over those assets when it's set up properly. And the other thing about a special needs trust is that it's an unlimited amount of money that can live in a special needs trust and not count against you for SSI and Medicaid. Now, one thing that I wanted to discuss is what if, because I mentioned if your child is turning 18, that we don't want them to have more than $2,000 in their name. So what if they do? What if they do? Can you just hurry up and close that account? The answer is no, because there is a look back on that kind of stuff. But what you can do is show proof that you spent the money down. So a lot of our kids have care needs, medical, out-of-pocket expense and copays and things like that. Did you buy a new computer for this e-learning that they're doing? Things like that. So you can spend it down and provide receipts. You can move it up to $16,000 into an ABLE account, and the remaining money can go into a special needs trust. So there's a right way about getting money into the right buckets as it relates to this. Another thing, when it comes to special needs trust, oftentimes special needs trusts are funded with life insurance and assets. So basically what a lot of families do, so there are families that have millions of dollars in their special needs trust. That is a fact. It does happen. But a lot of families are paying for their children's care needs, just like you always have. All these years, you've always just been paying for them out of your monthly budget and expenses and things like that. And you'll continue to do that, even in your retirement. But then once you're gone, you want to make sure that there's enough money in the special needs trust to continue to pay for those expenses. So a lot of times, setting up the special needs trust as a beneficiary on your life insurance is how a lot of families accomplish this. And the reason being is most families are going to need the money that they saved up over their 25 to 35 year careers. Most people are going to need that money during their own retirement. So they're not sure how much money is going to be left over if they retire and stay retired for 25 to 35 years. So that's the deal with that. So
well, Allison, one thing about that I want to point out, a lot of people say, oh, it's our goal to self-insure and we don't need life insurance because we're just going to be self-insured. But if you're self-insured, you don't have that money stashed away in a life insurance policy that a life insurance policy could give you that could go into that special needs trust. I mean, yes, put money in the special needs trust, but this is an extra bump that provides a great benefit for your kids.
Also, life insurance passes tax-free to heirs. So some of our most affluent clients use life insurance as an asset class. So there are some advanced planning strategies surrounding that. And you bring up a good point as it relates to this, because I think this is a perfect segue in mentioning, when we're talking to clients that are affluent, that they've saved a lot. They've had very, lucrative careers. They've saved a lot of money. And they say, well, why do we even care about SSI and Medicaid or Social Security Disability and Medicare? I mean, we're going to cover, little Johnny's needs through his special needs trust. And that is all fine and good. But what the key is we want to maintain their Medicaid and Medicare future eligibility for Medicaid and Medicare. And so some people could argue and say, well, I don't even need that either because I have group health insurance and my group health insurance will continue for little Johnny even after he's 26 because his disability started prior to that time. But the thing is laws can change. Corporate charters can change, how they handle group benefits can change, and their eligibility for those benefits can change in the future. So making sure that they have medical coverage through Medicaid and in the future Medicare is important. But the biggest thing that you guys need to know when your child turns 18, and if you've missed that deadline, like let's say your child is 20 now and you didn't know that you should apply for SSI and Medicaid when they turned 18, you haven't missed the boat. It's okay. You can still do it. Even if they're even much older, you can still apply. What the key is with the Social Security Administration and the benefit to your family is your child can qualify for childhood disability benefits under a parent's record if the child's disability started prior to age 22. So the magic age for the Social Security Administration is if their disability started prior to age 22, they can be covered, considered for childhood disability benefits under a parent's record. And what this means is that Social Security disability over here, the second block here, Social Security disability is not a means-based program. This is a worker-based program. As a worker, you have paid into the Social Security system. So in exchange, when you retire in the future, you're going to turn on your Social Security. For most of us, our full retirement age is 67. Some people are 66 in a few months. There may be a few people on here that's already retired, and that's okay. But Social Security, that's our retirement, but that is also Social Security disability. So if you become disabled, you, the parent, the worker, become disabled through the eyes of the Social Security Administration, there's a Social Security disability benefit. So basically what this childhood disability benefit is, and what they used to call it is disabled adult child, they used to refer to it as DAC. You can put that in the chat box, DAC, DAC. But now they're calling it CDB, childhood disability benefits. So they use the same vernacular for like 40 years, and then they switched over for our convenience to the new name, the childhood disability benefits. But basically what this means, so let's say, for instance, Michelle is retiring, and she has a disabled child whose disability started prior to age 22. And in this example, Michelle's Social Security, her retirement check is $4,000 a month. It's the max available. Basically, it's $4,000 a month. Under childhood disability benefits, her disabled son would be eligible for 50% of her benefit, so which would be $2,000 in this example. And then after 24 months, her son would be eligible for Medicare. So basically what would happen, so if we're clipping along, Michelle's son is getting SSI and Medicaid. He had turned 18. He is disabled. He was deemed disabled in the eyes of the Social Security Administration. He's getting SSI and Medicaid. And then a few years later, Michelle retires. And in that example where it's $4,000, her benefit's $4,000, he's going to get $2,000. He's basically going to switch over from SSI to SSDI. And our RSDI, Retirement Survivors Disability Income Benefit. He's going to still maintain his Medicaid under the Pickle Amendment. He'll keep his Medicaid. And then after 2 years, he's going to be dual eligible because he'll have Medicare as well. So I know that's a lot to take in. We're not going to spend too much more time with this because we're going to keep moving. But we have complete webinars and mini webinars and webinars where we've partnered with the Social Security Administration, Andy Hardwick. We have many, many webinars on this topic of SSI and Medicaid, Social Security disability and Medicare, how to work. If you can work, what can you do as far as working and drawing some of these benefits? So if you've got questions on that, definitely check that out on our YouTube channel. And Michelle, I'm going to turn it to you for questions. What do we have?
We do. We have one question regarding child support going to an ABLE account. Now, we do have a great webinar about special needs divorces that you should definitely go check out on our YouTube channel. And we typically advise people to have any child support beyond age 18 go into a special needs trust, but they're asking if they can put it into an ABLE account. And if so, do they have to have a court order, or can they just agree to do it?
So it can't go directly to the ABLE account, like as far as it like just directly going into the ABLE account, because if there's a court order for child support, that child support is going to be counted against them. Okay, so and we have this kind of at the end of the presentation, and it's something that we talk about almost every presentation, that if in the state of Texas, oftentimes when it comes to divorce, child support continues post age 18 for that special needs child. And what's important for you to know is that it is counted against the child as income, as their income, whenever they turn 18. So if you have child support that is continuing, that is not redirected to a first party special needs trust, your child may not be eligible for SSI and Medicaid. So if you know this is you know you've got child support that's going to be continuing, you need to work on getting this moved, to a first party special needs trust. A judge will have to sign off on it. There'll have to be a court order. Usually, I mean, it's the same amount, like the child support is the same amount, so hopefully they won't, dispute it as far as the X is concerned. But it definitely needs to go to a first party special needs trust, or it is going to be counted against them for SSI purposes. So thank you for bringing that up. But to your question, can the child support go to an ABLE account? So it's a convoluted answer. You cannot direct it directly because it's still going to be counted against you. So yes, could you get the child support and then deposit it into an ABLE account? Yes, you can do that. Can it go directly to the ABLE account? Not really. And even if you did that, there's no benefit to you to do that, because under the court order, they see what the child support you're supposed to be getting, and that's still going to be counted against them unless it's going to a first party special needs trust. And in that same vein, one thing that you also may want to know is that if you are getting child support, so let's say there's a court order for somebody to get child support, but the other parent is not actually fulfilling the court order, they're not paying the child support, unfortunately, in the eyes of the Social Security Administration, you're still getting it. Whether you're getting it or not, if it's a court order, you're getting it, and they're counting it against you. So in that example, you'll have to make a decision on, do I get that non-existent child support that I don't get redirected to a first party special needs trust that I don't need because I don't get the money? Or should I go to the courts and cancel the child support altogether and provide proof that the child support is canceled because I'm not getting it anyway? So, a qualified attorney can help you with that. We can make referrals for that. And there is like a whole webinar on that. And I know that this topic doesn't apply to everybody. What I will say is if you're in the zone and there is a possibility of a divorce and you have a special needs child, do reach out because there are attorneys that we do recommend for this, and we definitely do. We always recommend, some type of mediated thing that everybody wins, the kids win, and the best situation for the special needs child. But there are attorneys that are well versed in special needs, and there's a lot of special needs and divorce, and then there's a lot of attorneys that are not. And so what we do know is that you're better off to get these things set up on the front end than figuring out on the back end that your attorney didn't understand or didn't kind of know the nuances that go along with special needs divorce. And you may have a great attorney, and they're usually willing to partner with somebody else that may be specialized in that. So certainly we can make recommendations for that. So we've talked a little bit about a special needs trust. So we've got the abbreviation in there. Our industry loves these little acronyms and abbreviations, and it's enough to make everybody's head spin for sure. But so a special needs trust is going to preserve the future benefit eligibility while providing resources for your special needs child. So we mentioned earlier the max you can have in an ABLE account is $100,000. Well, if we've got kids that have care needs for the rest of their lives, not just ours, $100,000 isn't, what is that going to cover? 1 year, 2 years? What are we looking at here? So that's why we really have to consider having a special needs trust. So when it comes to transition and planning, a lot of the things that are on people's mindset and radar when their child is kind of coming around the bend to turning 18 is guardianship. So in the state of Texas, and again, entire webinars on guardianship, alternatives to guardianship, what you can do, what you can't do, the timelines and all of that. So we have webinars on that. But guardianship can be applied for up to 6 months prior to the child turning 18 to take effect when they turn 18. There is a such thing as partial guardianship. There's full guardianship. In the state of Texas, we have the supported decision-making agreement. Of course, there's a power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney. And in the state of Texas, they're going to help you. They're going to help you select the least restrictive, most appropriate avenue for your loved one. And the attorneys are very, very well versed in this. They, you know, and some of the families that we talk to on a pretty regular basis. So if this is you, I just want you to know for sure you're not alone. They say, you know, I'm hopeful and optimistic when my child is 18. I'm hopeful and optimistic, but quite frankly, he's not there yet. She's not there yet. For instance, they can't handle money. For instance, you know, like whatever. There's always a for instance, right? And a lot of our kids, especially, you know, we talk about ADHD, we talk about the autism spectrum. There's so many different, you know, diagnoses out there, but a lot of them, what comes with them is developmental delays where they may be behind their peers, you know, from a developmental perspective, from an IQ perspective. There's so many things. So I guess what I would say is choose wisely, choose carefully, work with a professional that's going to help you find the best fit for your family, and just know that it's not in stone forever. There is a such thing as your kids getting their rights back. So if you had guardianship or partial guardianship, because maybe they weren't there yet, but then they arrived. So all those things are things that you can consider. And again, we can't stress this enough. Work with a qualified attorney to prepare these documents. So what I like to say here, hey, look, I'm all about a good project and a good do-it-yourselfer, you know, kind of thing. I like doing stuff like that, but there's some things when it comes to this type of thing. This is not a do-it-yourself project. This is not, oh, my neighbor's attorney and he's going to do this for free. And that sounds great, but if you're an attorney that your neighbor, your attorney, or your brother, the attorney that doesn't have any background in special needs and doesn't know the language that has to be in all of your documents as it relates to a special needs trust and other things, I think that is the important part there that we want to say. And also, as far as, you know, when it comes to the financial planning, we're able to do a future care cost estimate. That's something that people call us every week. The two big things that people want is the Social Security analysis. We're nationally certified as Social Security advisors. And then also the future care cost estimate. When we have kids that are going to need care the rest of our life, what is that number? The rest of their life, what is that number? How do we plan for that now? We have to take careful steps and careful planning and saving and for the future to make sure that we hit those numbers. But we're definitely able to help people get there.
Right. I just want to, you know, we're talking about finding specialized help. You know, you wouldn't go to a real estate attorney to plan your divorce and think that you're going to get the very best advice, right? You wouldn't go to a dentist for heart surgery. So you have to find the right help when you're looking at different kinds of attorneys and who does what. And we can definitely help you with that. And it's the same with financial planners. You know, they're planners, they're financial planners, but if they don't know all this stuff, it could really mess things up. And we do have one question. Does a child with special needs have to be emancipated in Texas in order to qualify for SSI and Medicaid?
No. They can live under your house, in your household, under your roof. You can claim them on your tax return. That is not the case. Now, now a child, as far as emancipated, if they're a child, meaning under age 18, then the answer would be yes if they're trying to qualify under their own record. But basically, no, they can live in your house. Most of our families have kids living in their house, you know, for many, many years, as long as they can still, still care for them. So basically, but if they are a minor and they are in your household, then it's based off of you and your household's assets, basically not theirs. It switches over to theirs once they turn 18. And again, that is even if you have guardianship, even if they're still living under your roof. So that is a very good question. One thing I just want to comment one more thing, because one of the things that we see every week is documents that are wrong. Okay. So if you have documents, get them reviewed, get them looked at. If you have a will, if you have a special needs trust, if you have a trust that's not a special needs trust, that doesn't count. Okay. So the assets in the trust would be counted against your child. It has to be a special needs trust. So again, if you've had them done, maybe they were done a long time ago. Maybe this is on your to-do list that you haven't got done. Maybe they were done by an attorney that a personal friend, or sometimes we see the legal benefit through your group benefits through employers and stuff like that. Most of the time, they are not nuanced and special needs. In the last month or so, I have seen some of the big oil companies have some good special needs attorneys in their group plan. But get your documents reviewed for correctness. Make sure, I mean, it's worth it to pay the money to have somebody else review what you already have in place to make sure it's right. If you didn't use a specialized, person as it relates to that, we can help with that. We also see some big mistakes every week. So these are things that we're seeing every single week. So you're not alone. If you've made this mistake, it's fixable. It's not, it's not the end of the world, but people with outside advisors, and they've gotten the money in the wrong buckets. They've got minor children set up as beneficiary. They have your special needs child set up as a contingent beneficiary. These are big, big no-nos in our world as it relates to preserving these benefits for your kids. So if you are taking notes, I think the note that I would take is make sure to check beneficiaries on everything I have. Life insurance, long-term care, former pensions, 401ks, anything that bank accounts that transfer on death or payable on death. Those are the things that you're going to want to check. If you have named your minor children on any of these accounts, that needs to change, because minor children without disabilities, if you die, it's going to go in trust until they turn 18, and then they're going to get all of the money. And that's a horrible idea, okay? Because most kids, I don't know any kids that can handle it at 18, okay? They can't. So they get large sums of money, they spend it all, the money's gone, is basically how that goes. And so that's for minor children without disabilities. And of course, we never want to name our disabled child a beneficiary outright. So in the example that your child's name is Johnny Smith, we're never naming Johnny Smith as a beneficiary on anything. What we are doing is we're setting up that special needs trust, the supplemental needs trust for the benefit of Johnny Smith. We set that trust up, and then instead of naming Johnny Smith outright, the beneficiary is the special needs trust for the benefit of Johnny Smith. Then the money goes exactly where it's supposed to go, into that special needs trust. Johnny maintains his Ssi and Medicaid. He doesn't lose it. Everything's good, and there's funding for his future care. Okay. All right. So some of the things that people talk about is like, who's gonna care for my child when I'm gone? This is something that some people lose sleep at night. Every week we have somebody that will call at least once a week that says it's the end of the line. We don't have any other family, or we don't have qualified family. We have family that is unwilling to care, for our child with special needs. So
family that is willing, but we don't want them.
Exactly, for sure. So developing a future care plan now is going to answer some of these questions, looking what's out there. So some of us do have family. What we don't want you to do is just name a sibling as a future caregiver, okay? And sometimes I feel like I step on people's toes here, and I'm not trying to. Again, remember, I have kids with special needs too. But the thing is it's an obligatory responsibility that the child typically says yes for, but they're not ready for that. They didn't take this on. This is not their child. Your other neurotypical children have hopes and dreams to get married, to buy a house one day, or maybe build a house, or have a meaningful career, or maybe they want to have kids of their own. And the list goes on and on and on. Maybe they want to travel the world, all the hopes and dreams that a young person may have. And imagine yourself if you were 22, 28, 33, and you were saddled with your special needs sibling. Could you have done it? Could you have achieved the things that you have in your life? Would you have hit the goals, and would you be satisfied with your life? And usually a lot of times, if we're being real with ourselves, the answer is no. And so what we want here is, so what happens is when there's no decision made, it falls obligatorily to the siblings, right? If there's no decision made. So we want these decisions to be made and kind of be thought through, and it may change over time. If you have a young child with a diagnosis, your parents may still be young. You may still be in your 20s or your 30s, and your parents might be in their 50s. They got a lot of life left in them, and they would be great future caregivers, right? But as our parents age in their 70s and 80s, or their health is failing, then they may not be able to. And if your child lost you, I mean, how horrible would it be for their grandparent to be their future caregiver, and then a year or two later they lose the grandparents too? So those are all things that, you know, we say that, you know, to look at. But also we want you to consider touring facilities as a backup plan. Brookwood, Marbridge Foundation, Daymark Living. We have entire presentations on different facilities that are out there. Treasure House is one that I like to tell people about. It's in Arizona. It's in Phoenix, Arizona. Treasure House is pretty awesome. Kurt and Brenda Warner, the former football player, have this heavily endowed, but very, very affordable. But have a plan, I guess is what I'm getting at. I'm not saying how can we institutionalize your child. That's not what I'm saying. But what if you can't? What if you can't take care of them anymore? What if you are physically unable? Maybe you're too old, too feeble, too sick. What if you simply just can't? That's if you're alive. But what if you're no longer here? So when you're touring these facilities, when I say consider touring facilities, I'm also talking about transition programs post-high school, 18 plus programs through the high school, things like that. Be a student, tour these things, look at these things, look into this and see, you know, where your child might fit. It doesn't cost you anything to put your child on some of these waiting lists. And when they come up, you reserve the right to say no. But if they're not on the list, you don't reserve the right to say yes. And some of these waiting lists are 5 years. So, and a lot of people don't know that. So they call and they're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I need care right now. And I've called, you know, these, you know, plethora of places and nobody has any openings, and it's going to be 3 years minimum and 5 years, and very stressful. So that's why we say start, you know, looking at that right now. And as far as siblings, you know, we like to see siblings being the future trustee of the trust. The special needs trust is well funded to fund the future care cost for your loved one. And that sibling has that loving relationship, that friendship relationship, not the obligatory relationship or feeling of a burden. Because at times, I mean, even as parents, we have felt the burden. We feel burdened, and they're our own flesh and blood here. Okay, so when it comes to that, that's what we want. We want that healthy, good relationship, so that way, if your child with special needs can have that relationship with their siblings. But then basically maybe the siblings, if a bank isn't running the trust, then a sibling with financial savviness maybe can run the trust in your absence once you're gone, things like that. Okay, so we've talked about making sure that you have your assets in the right buckets. We've talked about ensuring that your family member is not set up as a beneficiary in any life insurance, investment, or bank accounts. But the big thing here, we see this all the time, ensure well-meaning family members don't leave assets to the named individual as opposed to the third-party special needs trust. I'm talking about grandma and grandpa, your great aunt Hildegard, who has so much money, right? And she is leaving money to your special needs child. We just want to make sure that it's not left to them outright. That's very important. Now, what if it is? What if you didn't know that great aunt of yours was so rich after all and was going to leave your child all of this money? Your aunt dies, she leaves lots of money to your special needs child outright in their name. What happens? What happens is you hire a special needs attorney, they go to the judge and they get a court order and they get that money redirected to a first party special needs trust, not a third party, a first party special needs trust. And there is a Medicaid payback on a first party special needs trust. So it's not the end of the world. They don't necessarily have to lose SSI and Medicaid, but in the example that somebody leaves your child money outright, that is what's going to have to happen. It would have to be redirected. You will need an attorney. You cannot do it yourself. It will need to be redirected to a first party special needs trust. Okay, so we're going to run through this relatively quickly because we are coming around the bend to the end of the time. So on the ABLE account, I think, Michelle, you really hit the highlight on the ABLE account. Income earned in the account is not taxable. The beneficiary is the account owner. This is under the tax code 529A. For ABLE. Contributions are not deductible, but it does not jeopardize SSI and Medicaid and other public benefits. So basically, and again, we're not going to go through this line by line. You can put $16,000 a year into an ABLE account. You can put an additional $12,880 if they're working. Okay, this is the 2022 numbers. What you need to know is it shouldn't be over $100,000, which we talked about, and at death, there is a Medicaid payback on the ABLE account. So just like a first party special needs trust, there's a Medicaid payback, and the ABLE account has a Medicaid payback. The third party special needs trust that we were talking about earlier there is not a Medicaid payback. So when we're leaving our life insurance to the third party special needs trust, there is no Medicaid payback. I'm going to pause a minute because I think we got some activity going on in the chat box.
Yeah. If you don't have any family members or anyone who can take care of the trust for you, then there are corporate trustees, Cadence Bank, and is it Texas Bank?
Texas Bank of Texas.
Those
yeah,
are
the ones that are, we see those the most for sure.
Yeah. And there's no limit on a special needs trust. You can put as much in there as you want. And yes, again, we will send out the slides on this webinar.
And, you know, also on as far as corporate trustees, really, when there's large sums of money, I mean, the reality of it is if we have a child that has care needs for the rest of their life, the amount that needs to go into the trust is in the millions, right? It's not, you know, it's not a small amount of money. And so most people don't necessarily have people in their family that are CPAs or accountants or finance backgrounds or have the financial wherewithal to handle that. It's not a small task running a trust. I've run trusts before. It's not a small job. And so typically we do recommend corporate trustees, and your attorney can help you put the right language in your trust to have a trust protector. So that way, basically, if you have a corporate trustee that needs to be fired, or if you have a trustee that needs to be fired, there can be trust protector language. But that's exactly why you work with a special needs attorney as opposed to another, because you have to have that kind of language in there. So here are some ideas of things that an ABLE account can pay for, because a lot of times people wonder, why do we need an ABLE account and a special needs trust? Basically, an ABLE account can pay for rent and mortgage payments. An ABLE account can pay for food and shelter. And so basically a special needs trust, if the child's getting SSI and Medicaid, shouldn't be paying for food and shelter, can it? And the answer is yes, but there is a reduction to the SSI, so you have to be careful with that. So this is basically what you need to know about the ABLE account is if it can be construed as achieving a better life for an individual with a disability, they can pay for it out of the ABLE account. Okay, so that's a very broad thing that they can pay for. So some things that that the special needs trust can't pay for. So we said rent and mortgage payments here, and this is unless you're willing to take a 1/3 reduction to SSI. So if the special needs trust is paying for the rent or mortgage payments, there would be a 1/3 reduction in the SSI. Okay. So again, we're going to send you out this list. You're going to get this. A couple of things. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. We have entire webinars on college programs for individuals with disabilities, and we've probably done one with you, Veronica, and if not, we probably have one scheduled. But here are some of the programs that are out there for individuals with disabilities in the state of Texas. These are worth looking at. Lynn University is actually in Florida, but all the rest of these are in the state of Texas. So these programs, look at them early, look and see if your child might be a good fit for these programs. Apply early. They don't always have, you know, a lot of seats. So you want to be, you know, be knowledgeable about that. And again, check out our webinars for that. Your accommodations don't transfer from the public school to the university. You do have to apply for accommodations at the college level or the university level. So, so just know that it is very, very important. You can get accommodations for the SAT and the ACT. You're going to get those from their website. They have a form that you can download. But again, just know that your accommodations from the public school do not transfer to the university. You have to apply separately for them. The offices of disability at the college level are not created equally. All schools have them. Some of them are good, some of them not so much. So do your homework. Okay, so these are some of the things. This is just a checklist that, you know, should be on your planning radar. If you've attended our webinars in the past, we pretty much usually have this checklist out there. You know, how to develop a special needs care plan, future care cost estimates. Certainly we can help you with that. We can certainly do the Social Security analysis, and we have specialized software that help you determine exactly how and when to pull the trigger on Social Security and how to maximize benefits for your household. This is especially important if you have a special needs child, even more important if you have more than one special needs child, and additionally important if you have one parent that has been a caregiver that will be drawing off of another parent's record, which is all things that we see on a pretty regular basis. So these are the things that should be on your radar. We can help you align your steps, you know, and look at the planning that you've done so far. We're never here to rain on the planning that you've done or any good things that you already have in place. We are here to help you build and kind of take it to the next level. And we always say it's not about looking back. It's about what you haven't done or beating yourself up about that. It's certainly about looking forward, and you're here today. So we're certainly glad for that. This is our team. We work on a collaborative team, and we always just like to share the members of our team here. We're pretty proud of our staff. We have awesome staff here as well. So we hope that today has been valuable to you today. I've got 1 o'clock, so we're going to end this. You can take a picture of this. And you can schedule directly with us. If you have, you know, questions and concerns as it relates very individually and specifically to your child, we can definitely help you with that. We have free consultations, so we're happy to chat with you kind of about where you are in the planning process and answer any additional questions that you have. Having said that, Veronica, thank you again for having us. Thank you, Michelle, for being here with us today. That was awesome. And we just, we're going to put this out. We mentioned the YouTube channel. We've got it here on the page. There'll be a link in our email with the YouTube channel, and we'll have the slides and the presentation for today as well. So thank you, everyone, for spending your lunch hour with us, and it's certainly been a pleasure.
Thank you, girls. Thank you, everybody. See you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.